Thanks for joining me again on the Live, Build, Change Morning Mindset edition of the podcast. My name is Kerry Green. I'm a retired pastor, and my purpose with this morning mindset is to encourage you. It really is. It's to encourage you. It's to encourage me in a way that will enable us to live this day with our mind more fully on the person and work of our God. You see, I believe as believers in Jesus Christ, we are under obligation due to the fact that we have been saved by the grace of God to align our minds with God's way of thinking about Himself, about ourselves, about the world we live in, and about our role in it. And this morning mindset is my attempt to help us do that every single morning of the year. I wanted to take a little time this morning to think about some of the things we find in Proverbs chapter 23. Proverbs chapter 23 is another of those passages that's full of wisdom, full of insight. The things that we are told here are things that can really change our lives, things that can enable us to live a life that is powerful in a world that is really full of foolishness. And the verse that I want to look at today, it's actually two verses, verses 17 and 18. And the reason I want to look at these is because I believe these verses speak to a phenomenon that's going on in our culture. And it's very obvious, but it's also very subtle what's really happening behind the scenes. You see, when you jump on social media at any point in the day, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or any other network that you get on, what you'll see is a variety of things. People ranting and raving about the latest political injustice, people who are touting their successes or those of their children, things like that. And people tend to put on what I've come to think of as their Facebook face. They tend to talk about the successes and not so much the failures. They tend to talk about the place they've arrived at rather than the journey that got them there and the difficulties they faced along the way. And it gives this impression that everyone out there is doing better in life and at the things that make up a successful life than I am. Do you relate to this at all? Do you have that feeling at times when you see everything on your Facebook feed, for example? And you just feel like everybody seems to be doing so well. Everybody looks so beautiful and happy and thin and successful. And in your heart of hearts, you feel like you don't measure up sometimes. Well, I want us to look at Proverbs 23, 17, and 18 because I think it addresses this. And we have to be careful about some of the language that we take our time to understand what it means. But it says this, it says, "Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all the day. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off." Now, you may balk a little bit there at the beginning when it says, "Let not your heart envy sinners," because you might say, well, those people on Facebook, I don't necessarily know that they're sinners. Well, I get that. And part of that's the nature of a proverb. It uses extreme language to drive a point home. But I think the caution against envy is just as applicable whether the person is a sinner, quote unquote, or not. We are to be careful about having envious hearts. No matter what it is we're seeing on social media, envy is not the answer. Wishing we had what they appear to have is not the answer. What is the answer? Well, Solomon tells us your job is to continue in the fear of the Lord all the day. And we can just stop right there and focus on that for a minute. Today, whatever's going on in your life, your job is to continue in the fear of the Lord all day. In your honor of Him, your respect under Him, your humility of being His servant, His child, and to accomplish whatever it is He has for you to do today. It may not be glamorous, it may not be ritzy looking, but it is fully what He desires. We're going to talk more about these two verses and this idea of envy tomorrow on The Morning Mindset.